What if we did the whole podcast and Kermit the Frog?
Can't be the contained.
I can do it too.
Oh my God.
Can't be contained. Hello.
That would be so fucking annoying for people. They'd be like, pause.
Yeah. And what's Miss? You have to. One of us have to be Miss Piggy.
Okay, try the Miss Piggy one.
What is she like? I don't know. What is Miss Piggy like?
I don't know. Maybe we just talk ourselves.
You know what the scariest thing that ever happened to me is I was in France on a trip with my family a long time ago, and we were in this old castle, and it was super haunted. It was terrifying. I didn't sleep a wink. And the moment I did actually fall asleep, my phone, I woke up to my phone, and my phone was playing Miss Piggy Steals the Show.
Stop.
I swear, on YouTube.
That's so weird.
I'm Miss Piggy, and I was stealing the show. How fucking scary is that?
That's actually terrifying.
The craziest thing I've ever. I was like, excuse me? Like,
Dude.
Who are you calling Miss Piggy?
Have you ever seen ghosts?
Mm-hmm. Have you?
Once.
What
and
was
it?
it?
It was freaky.
What was
so
it?
I was leaving my dance studio and I was with my girlfriend. If I was by myself, I would have chalked this story up to, oh, Sam, you're seeing things.
Yeah.
But we both saw this.
Wow.
We sat down in her truck and all of a sudden, I'm literally getting chills as I'm telling you. All of a sudden it was like, vroom, and the ghost left the back seat of the truck, went through the window and off, and it was so silent. Brooke and I look at each other and we're like, you just saw that, right?
Was it a person?
Wild. No, it almost looked like, dude, it almost looked like Casper the Ghost. Like, I'm not kidding
Yeah,
you. It
for
looked like
sure.
Casper the Ghost.
Whoa.
It was wild.
How did it feel?
I can literally feel it as I'm like telling this story. It was just like, it wasn't creepy, but it was seeing and experiencing something that the human mind has
Yeah.
no idea. So
Yeah.
my mind was like trying to orient to this
Yeah.
thing that I don't have language for
Yeah.
yet. And so the feeling was just this, you know, when you like take mushrooms or do something like
Yeah.
that and you're feeling all these energies, you're like, what is
Yeah.
this? It was like that.
Yeah. I think that's my new tip is like, a lot of what I'm experiencing doesn't have words. And the more I'm trying to have words for it, the more I'm sort of deducing down what I'm experiencing into something that like can't really be in words.
100%.
You know, we just really try and make sense of everything with the mind, and it really is so limited. And it sometimes is not correct, and it just feels, it just can never explain what you saw or how you felt. It's wild.
Yeah. I've been practicing with just somatic releasing.
Yeah.
Of like when I feel the energy or like the density in my body to be so present with the energy and just let my body release it and purge it and let it go with like contentless experience.
Yes.
You know? Because the second your mind's like, oh, I'm feeling this because of this thing or work or this relationship or whatever. It's just like it contorts and it gets like stuck.
Yep. I'm so grateful the women in my life now are so like use their body like antenna. It's just like so in the body, so responsive with the body, so in touch with the body. And that's like our superpower as women. But I had that experience too where I've just sort of been like just allowing instead of using the mind as much. And I'm going through a divorce, or I just got through it with a divorce. And I was going to Portugal with friends, and I was kind of like, I don't know why I'm going. Like, I didn't really understand. I was like, I love these friends, but it didn't feel super clear. I like Portugal. I don't love it. And I was like, I don't really know why I'm going. And so I was in New York with Lindsay, and we were writing our book, and then I was going to go straight to Portugal because it's a lot easier. So we were writing our book, and then we had to go into the city randomly for this reason. And we just so happened to have a meeting that was down the street from where I got engaged in New York. And I was brought back to this place where I could just do this soul retrieval of everything. And I was like beside myself, so emotional, even though I feel very clear on the divorce. And I was like, oh my God, my body needed the permission to release. And then when I was in Portugal that entire week, it was really perfect that I was with people that I really loved, but they didn't really know my relationship. So I could be with myself and my emotions, and I didn't have to be in the mind, because if I was with my girlfriends that know him, they'd be like, how are you feeling? What's going on? And I'd be like, oh, I'm feeling like this. I'm nervous. I'm all these things. But I was like, actually, you don't know me enough so I could be alone and just be with the feeling and use no words. And then halfway through the trip in Portugal, my sister messaged me. She goes, can you believe it's your wedding week this week? And I was like, My body has been
What?
purging all week. I've been beside myself crying. And it felt cellular. It wasn't
Yeah.
like my mind being like, I miss him. I miss this. I'm blah, 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 all these things. It was cellular, body
Yeah.
releasing everything. And I was just like, wow, like our intuition and body is so much more intelligent than our mind would
100%.
ever make it be. And if I was in my mind, I would have missed so much of what needed to happen and so much of the releasing and purging that my body just wanted to do.
Yeah, it's wild when we surrender the mind
Yes.
and just like follow the intelligence of the body. And oftentimes it's like the content of our life could bring up this experience, but the experience is archaic. It's
Yeah.
linear. It's like
Yes.
it's like not even from this lifetime. And so what you were purging in Portugal, it's like maybe the content of this life was like the antithesis of the unraveling, but the work that you were doing in that time period is actually so much deeper than we can possibly conceptualize.
That's the biggest facts. Yes.
Dude.
Because from a cellular level, the body is like DNA, or the DNA creates the body, and DNA has so much information from so many different lifetimes. And that's when the body can kind of mess with you. And even having a lot of spiritual knowledge or spiritual information can even mess with you, because then you're like, because that even can bring you in the mind.
Yeah.
You know, if you're feeling something and you're in the body, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's my mom. She never expressed herself. Oh, that's my
Yeah, there
you know what I
go.
mean?
There
And
you
then you're
go.
back
There you
there.
go.
And so it's like, how can we balance having spiritual awearness and information and knowing that as a support rather than like a deterrent? Because I've just noticed that a lot in the space where I'm like, we're still kind of getting there with the mind, and we're still allowing that to get in the ego, because then that's also being separate, or that's also being in the story of it. And then it can be, but it's so true. And that's part of the somatic experience, is releasing things without judgment, without story, and just kind of noticing what is, saying hi to it, and then also bye as it goes.
It's interesting though, like growing up and going through the school system and there being such an emphasis on intellect and processing and mind and reasoning and remembering and all of these sorts of things, that part of humanity is so developed. And so it's like for us to get somatic and get intuitive and get energetic and do all these things that are life force giving, it's like a muscle. It's like we got to work that shit. We got to go to the gym. We got to do the thing.
It is. Even I had a healing today I was telling you about.
Yeah, your womb healing.
My
Tell me
womb healing,
about it.
baby.
Tell me about it.
I'm ascending. And even in it, like at the beginning, I'm like fully in the mind for the first 15 minutes. I'm like, yo, I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to see my girl later, etc. I hope she's not late, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, even I have to practice like being fully in the body. She's like, how does your womb feel? And I'm like, no idea. Right. And I couldn't even connect for a moment. And it was like the practice of like, all right, come back to the body. Like, come back to the body, because I'm someone, I live above very much. Like, I'm very cerebral, very in the mind. The body for me wasn't safe for most of my life. It wasn't safe to be so sensitive. I think coming into the world as someone that's so sensitive, like I'm so sensitive, I'm such an empath. It's beautiful and it's a gift. And that's been my work, is like being empowered in my sensitivity and my gifts. But it's not fun for a lot of my life. It's not fun to be so attuned to people that are depressed, or be so attuned to people that are mentally unwell, or to, have sexual trauma that also makes it feel unsafe in the body, because you're like, oh, this body's not mine.
For sure.
When I'm here, when I'm here, I feel too much. When I'm here, I experience too much, and it always felt like too much. So when we leave the body, it's almost a coping mechanism.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's like, and my mind, like, I've over-indexed a little bit. Like, I love philosophy. I love just being someone that's seen as smart. So that's sort of been my thing, where it's like leaning on that, being like, I'm so smart, I'm well-spoken, all these things. And then that can be something where it overdevelops, and the ego's like, yeah, this is how I get love.
Totally.
And then I'm like, why do I even need the body?
Totally.
What's the body?
Mm-hmm.
And then on that too, it's like being a woman and being someone that grew up in the time that we did, like there were so many messages for us about our body, what it should look like, how much we should weigh, like, and my mom was just so programmed and indoctrinated in weight as the most important thing. And I remember when I was younger, she said her biggest fear of being a mom was if I would be fat.
Really?
Yeah.
And you
her
remember
biggest
that
fear.
moment?
I'll never forget the tiny things that my parents have said that were related to that. Because it was just, another notch of like, oh yes, if I am overweight, if I look a certain way, then I'm not going to be loved. And so when you are at war with your body, because you're afraid of how you look, or you're afraid that if you get put on weight or if you look a certain way, that's also not safe.
Yeah, dude.
You know, there's so many things that make it unsafe for us to be in our body, including the school system, including the way that they're feeding people in a way that's like not healthy, not grounded. It's such a challenge. So I just really honor people that are really working on that. But it's some of like our deepest, most spiritual work, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My relationship with my body was so, I remember, God, like probably a decade of my life, I would say, where I would wake up in the morning and the first thought, and this started at 12.
What do you mean?
The first thought was, I hate my body. What am I going to eat today? You know, it was so energetically expensive to have that relationship with food and the relationship with my body. And it wasn't until I discovered like somatic healing and breath work, and I was like, wait a second, I have this deep intelligence. And then I developed more of this, like, it was a long journey coming home to it, but it was this relationship of like, whoa, there's so much intelligence here. And my body is actually incredible. But fuck, even now, it like trips me up sometimes where I look at myself and I'm like, oh yeah. Or I have a thought and I'm like, oh, where'd that thought come from? You know, and like discerning, like, that's not actually my thought. That's like a societal belief. And it's just so deeply ingrained into our culture. I know a lot of my friends who are moms, and after they have the baby, it's like that there's a whole other body coming home, body healing journey, which you and I are going to have to go on one day.
I know that one is one I look forward to, and I'm so grateful that I've healed so much of the body so that I could, you know, step into motherhood. Because I remember when I was younger, and I just said crazy stuff when I was younger, you know, you just do when you're more unconscious. And I was like, yeah, I would have a surrogate if I could, because I was so concerned with my body. And there's no shade of surrogate or not, you know, but mine was purely vanity. I was like, oh yeah, I don't want to ruin my body. And now I'm like, oh my God, what else is our body here for?
Totally.
But to like bring life through. And I remember having that conversation too, where I remember being so anxious and focused on the body. I remember one morning waking up and just having a second and then hearing, and then it was like, the track starts. What are we going to eat?
Yeah, dude.
How are we going to work out?
Yeah.
What's the thing? I was like, dude, this is a prison.
100%.
And I never thought I would be able to not have that. I am so, when I think about my healing, I was thinking about this recently because I'm working on just some patterns that I've been, you know, some patterns, especially after you get out of a long-term relationship, you kind of reevaluate what's going on, how I'm living, how I'm showing up. And I always go back to, if I could heal myself to the point where I am now with my body, I can do anything, because I thought that would be my story forever. I was like, this will take me down.
Yeah.
Just how energetically taxing, emotionally taxing. It's just like, and I'll notice even when I'm with women that still struggle, it's actually very hard to be with them, a little bit because it's a mirror, but more so because you're not present at all.
Yeah.
You're half in.
Yes.
You're half in, you're half someplace else.
Yes.
And you're here talking, but your mind is, what am I, how do I look? What's going on? You know, am I fat? And it's so it's hard actually to be intimate in a relationship with someone like that too, which you also don't realize is another taxing part of hating and being at war with your body.
I had a friend growing up. She was my best friend. We hung out all the time, and she struggled really bad with an eating disorder, like bad anorexia. And every single time I would hang out with her, I had to wonder what version of her I was getting.
Ooh.
You know, there was a version of her that was just so calm and fun. And then there was a version of her who was so anxious. And then a version of her who was in self-hatred. And every single time I hung out with her, it was so unpredictable because her eating disorder was just eating her alive.
Yep.
And talk about not being present.
It's hard.
God.
And for me, as someone that growing up in a household with a lot of mental health issues and just instability, stability is like,
oh yeah.
If I am not, and I attune to people so much. So if someone's like that, it's so hard for me. It's so
like
unsafe.
a wobbly nervous system.
Exactly.
Like,
because what am I going to do? What am I going to be?
Just,
And a lot of that is, so a lot of the work that I do now is internal family systems. And internal family systems would approach that situation by looking at those different parts.
Yeah.
So those are all parts of her. It's not the real self.
Totally.
You know what I mean? But it's like, who's this part that's showing up that's like incredibly controlling, that's incredibly critical?
Yeah.
Who's the relaxed, cool part? And how can we be with and love all parts? Because in our work, we realize in life sometimes we're like, the way I would just notice the patterns. And the reason why I loved internal family systems is one day I'd show up and I'd be like, I am so powerful. I'm amazing. Like I am like all these things. And the next day I'm like, I am trash.
I feel like shit. Yeah.
I am like,
I am the scum of the earth.
Loser.
Yeah.
And then next day I'd be like, yo, I'm angry or I'm whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
those are all emotions obviously too, but it's like, there's multiple parts that we have
Totally.
that can be activated over time in different places. And how can we really find our center? And that's with the body. And get to know and love all parts. And internal family systems is really powerful in the eating disorder space because of that. Because people that have eating disorders or have disordered eating have a really strong inner critic. You know, they have a really strong manager that's like, oh, you can't eat that because if you do, no one's going to love you. You know, you're going to look fat, you're going to look disgusting. And then they have the exile, the part of them that's like been exiled. You know, it's just, it's a whole thing. But yeah, that experience is so real and true. And it's like, when you come more into wholeness and in your body and in your work, it's like such a beautiful thing to notice when you can feel present. But when you're not present, you don't know.
That's it, dude. I love that framework, parts work.
Yeah.
And for me, it was about developing the witness. Who's like, I'm like, okay, something's talking, right? Something's talking in my body. But then let's get with the one that is observing the one that's talking. Where is that? Does it live outside of my body? Does it live within my body? Is it in my mind? Where is it? And then like really developing that like witness of the one that is witnessing all of this going on simultaneously and really allowing myself to be in that observer position of, oh, there's my like wounded inner child. Here's my controlling one. Here's my one that compares. Here's my angry one. It's so powerful.
It's
everything. And I think the skill is like the releasing the attachment and the amalgamation to all of those parts to go, oh, whoa, that is not me. That's not me. There's something else happening here.
Unblending. It's like unblending. Like, you know what I mean? And it's so interesting because before I got here, I was thinking about like, what are we going to talk about today? And I was like, something where I thought witness state. I was like, we're going to talk about being the witness, which was interesting that we just did. But the unblending is so key. And that's why it's so beautiful to do that because, and I was laughing the other day with my guides because they were like, you love internal family systems because it like takes responsibility off. Where you're like, oh, that's not me. That's the part. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, ooh, that's a part.
That's not me.
Yeah.
Can't take responsibility for it.
I was like, there she is. That part's crazy. And just like, and, but it also, it's like, it's both. It's like, oh, I love her. She is me. But I'm also like, she's also not me because we're, you know what I mean? And it just helps you kind of get out of that where you're like, and I remember when I was younger, and I was just so depressed and so anxious. And I remember just being like, I'm so emotional. I'm so depressed. And I would just label myself as the things. And I'd be like, I'm so depressed. I'm so anxious. I'm so emotional. I'm so all these things. I'm insane, whatever. And just knowing that like, oh, that wasn't who I am.
Yeah.
It was so many things that were going on. And so I could unblend like, no, I'm having an experience where I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm having an experience where I'm depressed. But the witness state is like so underrated because that's consciousness.
100%.
That's becoming conscious.
100%. There's times where I have this like really, it's almost like a psychedelic experience, but I'm completely sober and I'm watching myself as if I'm watching a movie and I'm like, what's she going to do now? What's she going to think now?
Oh yeah.
And I think that spaciousness is just so healthy to be like, I am a human and I'm having these sensations and those sensations are creating behaviors and those behaviors are either yes or no behaviors, you know?
You're full alien.
Dude, I don't know.
The other day when we got done on our walk on the beach, I was like, that bitch is full alien. If she doesn't know, because the way that you talk about and see the world is not how people see it. And it's so organic to you and it's so easy for you. And it's like, I'm like, I don't think you realize that people don't see things and operate the same way you do.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I'm so in me. I don't know.
Exactly. I'm like, no, that's not normal.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, that's not how like this conditioning is. Like just the energy that you bring and sort of how you just navigate is very like just different dimensional vibes. And even being like that, like it's witness state and then it's also like from a spiritual perspective, you're like the higher self. You're like, oh wow, I'm having multiple experiences in multiple dimensions and times, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like pulling up and you're like, wow, look at her. Cruising around. You know, sometimes I'll do that and be like, look at her just cruising, driving in traffic.
See what she's doing.
You know what I mean? Like, what's up with you today? Like, how's she doing? And you can have fun with it. Because you're like, oh, this is playful and fun, and it doesn't have to be so like I'm sitting in traffic on the way here. It's like, what's going on? Like, where am I? What's going on? How can I bring more levity and play to it?
I think that's my come from in many things. Thank you, by the way. That's
Tried to wink, couldn't. I'm gonna try again. I remember I went through a winking phase, and my ex-husband was like, "The winking has got to stop." He's like, "You've been winking to like all of our servers. It's really got to stop." I was like, "I love it." Like I was like, I felt like I was in my like matriarch era. I was like, "Yo, thank you so much."
There's like some people can do a wink that's just like so classy and subtle. It's just like
I want that.
And then like let me and you're
I know I'm like a little special.
I'm like
I'm like, my Botox doesn't let me wink.
oh my God. Dude, why do I like you so much?
I love you.
What is that? Like
Star system.
Like the first time I met you, I was like,
Yeah, we were
who
fucking.
are you? I love you.
At Savannah?
You know, yeah,
Or
that
no.
was the first. Well, I mean, I
had
feel
met a
like
long- I think
feel
so.
like we like crossed, but like
Yeah.
Savannah was the first time that we like were like,
it was
whoa.
right away. We were like, something happened. But that's what's so interesting. I've really noticed and trusted just the timing of people moving in and out of my life.
Yes.
You know, it's been very interesting who's been moving into my life and who's been moving out. And it took me a long time to trust that. I think for so long I was like,
Beautiful.
just don't leave me. Something's wrong. If you leave, something's wrong with me. There's a problem here. No one can leave you know what I mean? And now I'm just so like trusting of like who's coming in, who's coming out. And like, it's just ebbs and flows. Some people are in for a season. Some people are in forever. Some people are not. And how much we can be unattached to that. Because a lot of times the relationships you're holding on to are holding you back.
That's so good.
You know what I
That's
mean?
so
Where you're
good.
just like being a certain version of yourself in that relationship.
You're like in a configuration.
And you're addicted to it.
Yeah.
You know, you're like addicted to it. So I just trust. I'm like, oh, my frequency now is different.
Yeah.
And so it's attracting you. It's attracting different type of people. And it's so much more available. I think my frequency is so much more available now, I think, than it was before.
I just noticed the first time I met you, I'm like, it's so easy to be in a relationship with you. I'm like, it's so fun. It's so deep. Like something that I value so much in relationships right now. In my prime age of 34 is range.
Yeah. But
You guys, like, I'm like, you and I can talk about literally anything from like the silliest, most playful crap to like the depths of the suffering and the hurting and like everything in between. And those types of relationships are so intoxicating. They're so energizing. They're so fun to be in, you know? It's like effortless.
I feel my heart when you're saying that. Just receiving that and feeling into it. It's like, and what I love about that is it's the up and the down, but it all feels the same to me. It doesn't feel
That's
like,
it,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
As someone that's, and sometimes I can be in a relationship if someone's too down, I can be, okay, I'm going to be down.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just, we'll go here and then we'll go here, but I still feel the same. I still feel sovereign. I still feel joy. I feel light. Like and I think that's a funny thing. Like I remember, I don't know if you had this experience when I was younger, it was almost like I was forcing depth. Where I'd be like with people like, what's the meaning of this whole thing? You know what I mean? Like, what are we even doing here? And just like trying to be deep all the time. And now I'm like, oh, it's like, you don't force depth. You're not like, what's your attachment style, girl? It's like, if that comes up, you know what I mean? You're just kind of like, sure, we'll talk about that or we'll not, or we'll laugh and we'll have fun. And play and pleasure are just like, laughter
So
and
good.
goofiness.
It's
like
so
that is
good.
the most spiritual thing.
What was that thing that you said on our walk the other day? And I wrote a post about it because I was like, that's fucking awesome.
That made I was emotional. It took me a second to reply because it made me emotional. Basically, I was like, it's so nice to be in relationship with people that are self-aware.
That's it. I was like, that's so good. And there's a level of that just like I can feel in my system that you trust yourself. And that allows my nervous system to relax. And when my nervous system is relaxed, I can find deeper connection with us. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. I know so much.
It's like, I know you've got you.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be times where you're like, I need support. And I'll be like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But like your resting position is I got you.
Yeah.
My resting position is I got me. And there's no like codependent. And those types of relationships, whether it's two friends, romantic, whatever it is, it's like there's so much energy richness there that just like percolates and grows and grows and grows. And then
And
just
it's
so
like
fucking
taking
fun.
responsibility, you know, just like being with someone that's always like, ooh, I'm noticing that I am a little bit like this in this moment, or like I'm noticing that I said yes to that and I really didn't feel like it, and it's never like, you're doing this or you're not calling me or you're whatever. It's just always when you do the work, you really can look at everything as like an opportunity for
100%.
and an opportunity for your growth. And that for me makes me the most safe, because I'm like, I know that every relationship is an opportunity for growth, relationships where I do the most learning. And so it's like just a playground, but I also need someone that's going to come and be like, I'm coming to this, like, and I'm noticing myself a little triggered by something you said.
Yeah.
Like it kind of brought up this part of me that's like, ooh, I don't know if I feel comfortable talking about that.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, and just kind of can go, and you're like, totally. Because it's not like I didn't I'm still in my sovereignty. You're in your sovereign experience, and it's not reachy. It's not like you're doing this, you're doing that. And I'm so grateful for that. And Lindsay, my podcast co-host, has been such a playground for that.
Lindsay?
What's up, girl? And we just are able to every moment, she even called me the other day. She's like, yeah, I just want to talk about like I was really triggered when you were saying that. I'm like, oh, cool. What's up with that? Like, maybe it's this. I'm like, maybe I did this. I experienced this. And we can just we're so secure, and I'm becoming more secure with my relationships with people, where you can go there and it's safe. And you're like, oh yeah, this whole time that we're talking about something that has a charge, you're only talking about yourself. And I'm only talking about me. And it's not a selfish way, but it's like, oh, that's bringing up this for me. That's bringing up this for you. Let me be more kind to you in this way. You can be more kind to me in this way.
Totally.
Like, oh, how can I support you in that? Like, would it feel good if I do this? It's just, I mean, I never thought in my life I'd be in relationships and friendships that were like that. Like for so long, friendships was a hard part for me, because I would just lose myself. I would just fully, it's funky, especially for female friendships can be challenging.
Yeah, dude, that sister wound is like, it can be deep.
What's your journey with it?
It started really young, and then I feel like I learned about it really young with female friendships, and then they were beautiful ever since. But going back to my childhood, so there was this 1 year where I went from like a chubby, like awkward. I convinced my mom that it was a good idea if I like shaved the bottom of my head. And so I had an undercut. So I had like this bowl cut, but then half of my head was shaved, and I was like a little bit chubby, and I wore like awful tearaway clothes, those
sick.
tearaway clothes.
Fuck yeah, what do you
with
mean?
like boxers underneath, and I was just like
that was a whole vibe.
It was a whole vibe.
It was like an Aaliyah moment,
dude. 100.
Yeah.
And so I went from like that persona to literally a few months later, I don't know what happened, but I think I got a growth spurt, and I lost all this weight. I grew, like my hair was growing out, and I went from like, and it was over a summer. So I went back to school, and there was this girl, Isabella, and she told fucking Isabella.
Say no more.
She told the whole school that I went to fat camp, and that's why
That's so fucking
so fucked up,
crazy,
right? And so I went through this whole process where like I went to therapy for it, and I was distraught, and it was like so intense, and like people were believing it, and it was like so bad. And then through therapy, I learned, I'm like, hurt people, and I began to learn I was young. I began to learn at a very young age about when people are mean to each other, and people are, those bad things happen. It's like oftentimes they're just really mad at themselves, and people can't treat other people worse than what they treat themselves. So Isabella must be really hurting, right? And so I developed that knowing and that awareness. And that really helped us. That was really formative at that age, right? And then I grew up as a dancer, a professional dancer. And so I was around women all the time. But because I had those skills that I learned through therapy and through that traumatic experience with Isabella, female friendships now and have been like very easy for me. And I really love them, but I also attract women into my life who are so easy to be in relationship with, like yourself, right?
It's funny. I lost weight I think 1 year, like sophomore year or something. My sister was 4 years older than me. And I remember I like came back, and I don't even know what happened. I lost weight. And my sister was like, everyone knows that you're doing cocaine. I was like, I literally was like, I'm from Ohio. What are you talking about? I was like, people thought I was doing cocaine to lose weight. I'm like, what kind of psychotic? But it's just all the, you know what I mean? And that's interesting too, because yours was kind of like women and the body stuff.
Yeah.
Women in the body. Because then it's like, oh, you can't look good.
Yeah, like
we're
what
gonna,
is that? What is that?
What is that? Well, I feel like it's the mothers. The way that my mom was so body focused, was so body obsessed, was so body critical. So I think there's that component. I think there's like scarcity mindset that's just ingrained in us from a young age. So it's like, if they're thin, it can't be okay for you to be thin. You have so much fear around it. You're just projecting. It's like, it's a whole thing. But I think a lot of us have had instances very young that really set ourselves up to feel not safe in female relationships and feel like something's going to happen, feel like, you know, we can't trust them, or feel like all these types of things. And I think it's some of our deepest work, you know, at almost 30 is really healing that sister wound in like the most talked about way. Like, I don't want to be like, we're here to hear your sister wound, honey.
Tell me.
Like, that's like my nightmare is just to be so overt with stuff. Cause I've actually felt like, and really noticed even that it's like the people that are very directly being like, we're here for sisterhood, or like trying to heal their own sisterhood
100%,
stuff. Do you know what I mean?
100%. It's interesting. If we go back to like tribal times and how women would do witch work together.
Yeah.
And there was this energy of just collaboration, and we're all bringing our spiritual gifts to the table. And each of us, like, your system is bringing a gift in your own way, and my system is, and it's so collaborative for the purpose of healing and transformation, community and coherence and all of those things. It's like, how can we bring that back and remind ourselves of that in a way that doesn't feel like
I know
it's coming from the wound?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the issue with a lot of activism is like,
oh yeah,
it's like you're becoming the thing that you're fighting.
oh, what do you mean? I'm like,
right. So
where are we going? I'm like, where do we want to go?
Oh God.
Yeah, that was the biggest learning. I was like, whoa, just watching that happen. And that's why I've never been like, I mean, all I do is I'm with women all day. Like, women is my work being, you know, but I've never been like feminine, like divine feminine, like healing the feminine, blah, 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 because it just always felt like, I'm also not saying something's wrong, you know what I mean? And being like healing the divine feminine. But I think sometimes what will happen in those circles, and I'm so averse to those circles sometimes because it is so much unhealed people, just sort of, there's just a lack of spiritual hygiene or energetic hygiene in this space. But it can be really funky. So that's why being in touch with the body, like, does this feel good in my body? Does this feel true in my body? What am I trying to get from this experience? Where do I find myself attracted? Like, what am I looking to do? But yeah, it's a whole vibe.
It's a whole thing, dude. Like the whole, where do we want to go with this?
I know, honestly, I'm like trying to clear, like, what do you want to say?
It's like what I feel with this content of spirituality, there tends to be a lack of awareness around our spiritual ego versus our what is in the highest best for all of us to heal and create coherence and come back into wholeness. And there's this energy sometimes of like this spiritual elitism that kind of goes into spiritual bypass that creates this like feeling of feeling unsafe in those types of communities. Right. And so it's like, and going back to what we shared already, it's like, how can we all take a deeper amount of emotional responsibility for ourselves?
Yeah.
And like really, but that takes so much self-awareness, which is such a tall order for a lot of the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why and there's just kind of, it seems like there's like different tracks of spirituality where it's like the Buddhist Tao, where you're kind of like detached almost from it, where it's like everything is perfect, everything is fine. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's true. But then we're also bypassing
100%
the self and
so
bypassing.
that's an interesting one. It's like surrender versus spiritual bypassing and the nuances.
I know. Yeah. Because it's, in the spiritual bypassing thing, it's like, I feel like that word got hijacked and it just became a way for people to sort of like shame or blame people that were doing a certain type of frequency work in our space. So I kind of like hate saying spiritual bypass. But when I see spiritual bypass, I kind of just think about internal family systems where it has you have self-like parts. So we have the self, the capital S self, the witness.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, I'm all knowing.
Yeah.
And then you have parts that act like that. Where they're like, I'm the mystic. They're like, I love and forgive
Oh,
everyone.
yeah.
The love and light
Yeah,
ones.
yeah,
They're like, I
yeah.
love and forgive everyone. Everything is fine. And I would do that quite often with myself, where I would have an experience and I would bypass the pain and go to forgiveness. Like even with my mother wound healing, I'd be like, you know what? She did our best. She's trying, we've made it so far. And I would just totally go over
Interesting.
all of the pain that we're in. So, people often do that in the space, but spiritual ego is huge. I mean, spiritual ego is really like the obsession with the tools, the obsession with the information, can never get enough information, can never get enough research, can never get enough, courses and programs, can never get enough learning. And it's just the more and more and more, it's like almost like materialism.
Yes.
Just
yes.
in it.
Yes.
It's like, and then it's also feeling better than, had a session and I'm Cleopatra. So everyone's a minion and I am, born in Atlantis. And like, it's like, I always get back to how is this information bringing me closer to oneness or closer to separation?
100%.
And so
100%.
all the information, I've had crazy sessions, I've had ceremonies, I know a lot of stuff about but I'm never like leading with it.
That's right.
It's never like, actually I'm from a galaxy very far away.
Yeah, I am a starseed.
I'm a starseed. It's hard to be on Earth. Earth is trash.
I got a DM yesterday. I am Andrew. I am a starseed and I'm here to awaken the feminine. I'm like, oh, are you, Andrew?
Are you? I literally had the thought last week. I was like, I want to prank those people.
Dude,
we should literally do a show that's like just pranking those people.
Oh my God,
and just replying and be like, oh my God, I've been waiting, Andrew. And just just actually turn it on them and be like, actually, Andrew, there's something I need to tell you.
We are going to do this.
Okay, 100%.
It's happening. Oh
We're going
my
to do a
God.
full
Oh my
episode where we
God.
just prank the scammers.
Oh my God, let's do it.
I actually have so many DMs from people are like from like random men all over the world that like are like, baby, I love you, like blah, blah, blah. No eligible bachelors.
Too bad.
And I
We're
want to
still
just
waiting.
respond and just be like, yes, I do want your hand in marriage. You know what I mean? Just be like, yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you found
Oh
me.
my God. Or yes, I will wire you $100,000.
Yes.
I will do that right now.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
What's your bank info?
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes. Send
I'm
me the
here for
info.
it.
I got
oh my
you,
God.
fam. I literally got you. Okay. Spiritual ego we were talking about. And the obsession with the tools, the obsession with information.
Yeah, it's like, when is enough enough? At the end of the day, it's like, I like spirituality. It's like we don't have to do spirituality. It's like we are spirit. That is, you know what I mean? It's like it's the essence of our beingness. We don't actually have to do anything, and that's why I think like people have different doorways into like themselves, right? And sometimes it is that very serious spiritual. My doorway is like fun and play and fucking around, And it's like when I am in that doorway of like joy and fun and excitement, it's like I am exuding what my soul came here to do, and I am like the most authentic version of myself, And it's like in that, if I was to plaster ego on top of that, it would like contort the entire thing. It's like all of us just like take a deep breath and just like fuck around. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, be in pleasure, be in play, because that's like the most.
Yes.
I've been really tuning into that because I think as a collective, we've learned a lot through pain and suffering. It's really been a part of our
100
our journey. It was really important for us to do that, but we're actually leaving that epoch. We're leaving that behind, and we're actually learning through pleasure and learning through joy. And yeah, that's something I've had to be friends with because, when I did that darkness retreat, I remember I was in the first day of darkness and I was like, fuck it, in it. And I was like, why do I have to learn through fucking pain?
Interesting.
I was like, I'm done with this.
Dude,
I'm
that's
done
so
with
good.
this.
It's so good.
And it transmuted and alchemized into something that was really beautiful. But I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to suffer. And that doesn't mean there's not going to be pain.
Not. Of course
but
not.
it's just like, I want to make the conscious choice to just be more attuned to the moment, to stay more in a frequency that I want to, so that I don't get so far off that I'm like, God's like, yo, bitch, we got to wake you up.
100%.
That's the part of the spiritual work, and not being so like blindsided by something. But you never really know what God's got for you. So that's the whole thing too.
This is it. It's like, Jesus, take the wheel.
Jesus, take the wheel. And people could come in with the frequency of like, I want to learn through pain. And I remember one of my lowest moments in my life, I was walking in my I was walking in my bedroom, and I'll never forget where I was. And my soul was like, you really hate this, but I love it. I'm learning so much. And just like knowing that contrast, from a law of one perspective, or from like a perspective of being in the 3D, now not 3D, but being in polarity, it is contrast. And that's how we learn, is through contrast. And so remembering that from a soul perspective, they're here for lessons. And sometimes those lessons don't come in pretty packages. Sometimes those lessons are like painful. And so The Law of One was a book that I really loved, that really helped me to recontextualize kind of our experience and be like, oh yeah, it's not always about just having fun, pleasure, everything. It's like, it's about both, because that's true. Obviously when you're in pleasure and joy, you should be there 100%. And if you're in pain, you should be there, because that's how you get out of that the most, by being honest with yourselves.
But I think the nuance here is, it's what is the hard, painful lessons that the soul is choosing versus what is the pain that the human mind manufactures in order to get over it, so that we feel like we're growing. So like, I'm like a recovering high achiever addiction. Like like so much of like my upbringing was like, I work really hard at dancing and I fucking crush it, and then I get rewarded, but it's hard work.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Right.
100%.
And so that trained my mind of like, when it's really hard, then there's gonna be a reward.
Yeah.
But that's my mind.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which I love what you pointed to here. It's like there's the curriculum of the soul to evolve and grow and become more, and that's the fucking good stuff.
Yes. And when the soul has a curriculum, it's like it always has you. Like that's where I felt like in my darkest, hardest moments. It was always my soul just being like, guiding me through. It was like, I know we're going to do this. I know it's painful. And I think that's part of the witness, and just having that connection and trust to your soul. That would be my greatest wish for everyone, is to connect with their soul and have that relationship where you feel like you're not alone. You feel like there's some reason why you're here. You feel like there's purpose. You feel like that it's all happening for a reason and for hopefully your greatest good. That's where we can kind of let go and be like, okay, I trust.
For sure.
And having that trust is huge.
And remembering that God exists in the crunchy moments.
Oh my God, 100%.
It's like in the pain, God is there. Like there's divinity in the density, moment by moment, breath by breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is I was just reading about this, is that Israel means to wrestle with God.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
The word Israel. I need to double check that, but I was listening to something and it said that. And basically it was a talk that was giving me permission to wrestle with God and have the thought of like, sometimes we have there's different beliefs. If you're Christian, you're kind of in a different vein. If you're in a different, but I was like, oh, actually as a human on earth, I can actually have that like kind of stickiness with God sometimes, where I can be honest and truthful and like, yo, God, enough. I'm done.
Yeah.
Like enough.
Move
We're done.
on.
We're moving
done
on.
here.
We're
and
done.
Seen.
Yeah.
And
I'm
seen
done.
God.
I need more. Like, go easy on me. Like, let's move on. And just having that like truthfulness of like, we're co-creating in this, because I am God. You are God. Like, we're doing this together. And that honesty of like the struggle that you can have sometimes. Because like, I won't say that if your child dies, when your parent, when you're going through that, you're like, you are not here. This is not, just there's enough pain and suffering on this planet for you to question God very regularly.
For sure.
I will say that 100%.
Sure.
So I'm not going to get it twisted, but just as much as you can, come back to the God and the truth of it.
I've been so inspired recently. One of my dear friends, her husband passed away out of nowhere. He had a cardiac arrest and died out of nowhere 3 weeks ago. And I'm getting chills watching her move through this with God by her side. And one thing that she said is, I don't get this, but I trust you. And I'm like, chills. It's been so inspiring seeing her not harden as her heart has been breaking and watching her continually trust the process of the divine unfolding in one of the most tragic things. Like they got married a year ago. Like Eric and I were at their wedding, and then literally nearly a year later, he died out of nowhere. And it's those moments in life where it's like, what the F? And I trust that there is a divine unfolding of this entire thing, and some reason that I can't conceptualize. I don't know this. There is perfection even in this, you know, and getting to that place of awareness in the perfection of life is like watching her go through it. I'm just like, you are so inspiring. Like, thank you for showing us what's possible.
Oh yeah. And you know, as like, I always come back to too, like, I'm not your soul. Your soul has a path that I don't know what's up with it. Like I can love you as your, and I'm not even saying if I was her, but it's like, I can love you as your wife, or I can love you as this person, but like, and we can choose to create in this lifetime, whatever, but like your soul has got its own thing.
Its own thing going on.
And my soul has its own thing. And my soul's going to do whatever it needs to do. Like, cause our souls are like, oh, we're eternal.
Yeah.
You're with me always. I'm with you always. Like this body is actually bringing me down. You know what I
heavy.
mean? Like
This
this
body's heavy.
This body is heavy and it's clumsy.
Yeah.
And so honoring each other's soul, or honoring everyone's like soul path, and not thinking that we know what it's here to do.
Yeah.
You know, because that's part of the mystery. When you look at all the pain and suffering, you're like, I don't know what your soul's came here to do. Because your soul could be like, I really want to figure out what abuse feels like. I really want to figure out all these things. Like our souls approach things so much more curiously, and so much more like, as all feeling and expression of the human experience is not bad or good. It just is.
Yeah.
And then we do the stories and labels of it. If this is bad, I only want to feel, you know what I mean? It's like, no, I just want to do it all.
Yeah.
Like I just want to
indulge. I want to experience. I want to play.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yes.
Like that's what feels so fun.
Yes.
Is like the dance with your soul.
Yes.
The exploration of, you know, because I always say like in the 5D, there's no sex and chocolate. So we come down here and we're in these bodies to experience sex and chocolate and yumminess and joy and like all of these sensations that are not possible, just like living in soul land. Like,
yeah. What was it? Alyssa Nobriga said, she's like, I'm not here for, what was it? She's like, I'm not here for ascension or something. She was like, I'm here for like growth. Like I'm here to like grow in this soul experience. Like it really is like, how can we support ourselves in this soul growth here on earth as we just like learn the lessons and like see the mirrors and see the opportunities and see the things. Because there's so many. I mean, I'm always blown away every day. I'm like, there's so much going on in my life and in my brain and in my body and in my relationships, like that. I'm like, every person has that. Every person has what's up with their mom, what's up with their dad today, what's up with their work, what's up with their body. I'm just like, yo.
it's so intense.
How much compassion that we need to have for people is like crazy. Cause I'm like, even for me, I'm like, yo, I got a lot going on.
For sure.
You know, like
For
it's
sure.
just, it's so layered.
The human experience, it's like, this is why I love like the work that we get to do in the world. And I love how we get to have these conversations. Because once upon a time, I felt so fused with my human experience and there was no spaciousness. There was no spaciousness and knowing that this is just one part of it, you know? And having these conversations around our soul and around spirituality and around God and around what we're all here doing and experiencing and unblending, as you said, from that intensity of the human experience, it helps so much. It's so important.
Yeah.
You know, there's this part of my belief system that's like, we're all going to die, so who gives a fuck? But not in like a downer way.
Yeah.
It's in a, we're all going to die, who gives a fuck? Like, let's just have fun and let's experience and let's not take this so seriously and let's create and let's express our soul and let's make mistakes. Like permission to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's
you know?
huge. I mean, it's funny because it's like one of those things, it's almost like a cliche or it's like an Instagram quote to be like, permission to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you're like, totally.
Like,
Yeah,
share.
like, I'm like, yeah, girl, make mistakes. And then I'm like trying to be perfect. And that has been, I mean, I even today actually was talking to myself. I'm like, there's a few situations where I'm like, oh, I didn't handle that well. And I was like, oh, that was a mistake.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I was like, oh, yeah, I was like, oh, that was a mistake. I would do that differently. Or like, I know differently now. Or just like, And just really being comfortable with that and being
Yeah.
comfortable in relationships with your friends
Yeah.
making mistakes and your,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And people that you're with and like at work. And because I've noticed that too, especially with a team, it's like when the team is like overly identified with the work as their thing and then they make a mistake, it's like, I am bad.
Yeah.
I am horrible. This is so uncomfortable. And it's like, oh, we got to pull up. Mistakes are
For
normal.
sure. For sure.
It's just permission to make mistakes.
Yeah. I learned this really cool exercise from my friend Jen Hootie, and it's called the do-over.
Cool.
And so you lie in your bed at night and you close your eyes and you scan your day. Like you start from like when you woke up and like the interactions that you had and the things that you consumed and the food and and you kind of track the energy and see if there's any like mistakes or fuck, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. And it's called the do-over. So you redo it in your mind, in your consciousness, in your awareness, and it like reprograms like I would have done it like this. And then the next day you wake up and if there's any clearing conversations to have, like, hey, Eric, I should not have said that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Clearing conversations are huge.
How are you with courageous clearing conversations?
I'm so much better. And I even had like, I had like 3 this week.
Oh, really? Team?
Yeah. No, friends.
Friends, yeah.
And it's like so interesting because that's the thing too with being in conscious relationship. There is that part where it's like, you got to step up to the plate, dog. If you want like the deep level of intimacy that you crave, like that means you have to show up.
Yeah, 100%.
With intimacy and show up with truth. And at first it's exhausting and it's like, dude, I'm like, oh, let's just fucking
So there's one other rug.
Yeah, literally. I'm
Lumpy
like,
rugs all over the
let's
place.
just get busy. Let's get busy and move on. But it's now I just approach it. I'm like, practice. I'm like, come to center.
Yeah.
Come to truth. Like, how can I use this as an opportunity for my healing? So now I'm really, really good at them. And I just, oh my God, I don't know if you feel this, but there's no better feeling for me than showing up to sticky moments and staying sovereign.
Dude,
and showing
100.
up with love.
100%.
Actually, there was one at work. There was a conversation at work and I just was like, I love you. I left. I was like, I love you so much. I was just fully in my body, fully grounded, fully in love,
That's so good.
fully in truth. And I was like, God, because before years ago with work, I was just so activated and so like, I was like, oh, you know, like, I wouldn't say that to them, but I'd just be so triggered by it.
Yeah.
Triggered by someone else expressing needs because I wasn't supporting myself in my own needs.
100%.
And I'm like, oh my God, they're expressing their needs. They're burnt out. And I'd be like, well, I'm fucking doing it.
Yeah, yes.
You know what I mean? And just not able to see myself in that. So, I mean, I bet you're baller at them.
I love them now. Like I've grown to love them.
Yeah.
There's something in what even is it? It's like I love the feeling on the other side of a courageous conversation, like just the connection and the depth that it gets to, that there's like this part of me that feels so excited. And it's always an invitation for the other person to go deeper. You know, I had 3 conversations this week, but they were all team related with like my leadership team. Yeah. I was on one last week.
I know.
Yeah, I was.
It was dope.
I was on one. Like
it was dope. I was inspired.
It was like, wow. Okay, cool. Okay, we got 10 minutes. And so this week I got to just like be with my team to be like, hey, I love you. And there's gonna be times where like I feel untethered and I feel fucking scared. And thank you for being there for me. And like I shouldn't have said that in the way that I said that to you. And they're like, cool. You know?
It's huge.
And it's like, for me,
Self-aware.
courageous conversations, yeah, exactly. Create safety. Courageous conversations are more like, I desire to liberate the stuckness in my own system that I feel from, like, it's almost like it's more about me clearing my consciousness and like moving the energy than anything else.
100%.
You know?
100%. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's all, and that's what I always say to, well, I used to say this to my ex-partner. I used to be like, I want you to take me so seriously and not seriously at all. You know what I mean? So it's like when I'm in that, I want you to be so attuned to what I'm saying, but also not take it seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
So that it's like, oh my God, this
so
means
good.
like, you know what I mean?
That's
it's like
so good.
And when you're self-aware, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can be like, oh, I'm witnessing what's happening.
100%.
I'm kind of picking up what's true for me and what's not. What's their story and what's not. And that's also why it's nice to have more insight and depth into like someone's stories.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's like control. For me, it's like taking too much on. For me, it's spreading myself thin. For me, it's fear of being abandoned, all these things. And so Lindsay is so attuned to that now, where she'd be like, oh yeah, I noticed that you're doing this because you're, you know what I mean? I'd be like, and I don't say it to her, but when we're in our loving container, we can both know that we're working with that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know this is kind of coming, you know what I mean? Or like, and so it's just really beautiful.
Those relationships are so powerful.
Everything.
And it's so interesting, right? With parts work, sometimes you can get so fused in the part that you're like, no, this is real. This is me. I'm really mad about this. And then like people who really know you can be like, hey, you know what? I don't think so. Like, I don't think this is your truth.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I've also realized too with and that's the biggest truth and something I've really realized, but I've also realized with parts work and the way that I like to be held in my relationships, this has become so clear for me that when I'm in that, when that part is active, we need to be present with that part.
Yes.
There's no.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's no
100%.
I was talking to a friend the other week, and I was kind of just in the part of me that doesn't feel successful, the part of me that feels like nothing I do ever works or all that.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, well, what about, I have this course I'm going to send you that I do. And you know, what is true? And it just kind of was like going too much in the like action of it.
Yeah.
And too much in, well, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
All that. And I'm like, absolutely not. That's not where we're at.
100%.
That's actually, that's the bypass. That's not where I'm at.
Yeah.
I want to be here with this. And that's also, if you trust your friends enough, you can know that they're not going to be there forever.
Yeah.
That they're going to move out of it and be like, oh yeah, that was a part of me that was activated, but we need to validate those parts when they come up.
100%.
You know,
it's like the validation and the meeting of the part shifts the consciousness of the part, and then it helps move the energy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I hear
feel
you.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine like that's wow.
Yep. Because then the part's no longer scared. The part's no longer yelling. The part's no longer activated.
Yes.
And what can happen if someone kind of shuts you down and they go too much into solving,
Yeah.
you can be like, oh, you know, and then the part says, I knew that I was doing something wrong. I knew that I wasn't doing enough. You're validating me because you're telling me.
Here's a course. Here's a thing. Here's a thing. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. See,
Exactly.
told you so. Told you so.
Told you so.
Told you it sucked. Told you I'm not successful.
Yep. Told you I knew I needed to do no more. And now you're telling me that.
Yes.
That's a huge, yeah, but that's like not master level, but we're so lucky that our friends are healers and teachers and kind of in the biz where they get that. But if for people to be proactive that are listening, it's like, that is when you're proactive and like, hey, I want to be present with really what is. So whatever I'm going to say, I just want to be present with it.
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest permission I've had to give myself is Lindsay again has really helped me to liberate myself and just being like, I'm going to say crazy shit sometimes. And it needs to be taken seriously and not seriously.
That's such a good
Because sometimes you'll be
frame.
like, burn it down.
Yeah.
Burn it down.
Yeah.
Start over.
Done.
We're done.
We're done. We're
Moving
done
away.
here.
I'm buying a farm.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And just being like, cool.
The amount of times I've told Eric,
100%.
sell it all.
Yep.
We're going to live on a farm.
Yep.
No technology.
We're buying
I'm
goats.
done.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. And you know, and just being like, okay, cool. Totally.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
And I think that's the last thing on it. It's like, that's the masculine. That's when the masculine is in mastery. When they're really just present for that. You know, when they're present for seeing the truth, but also seeing the wave of experience that the feminine is in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Oh my God.
This has been the best.
Dude, I'm like,
I'm on a different planet.
we could go
literally.
all day
I'm like,
long.
this has been my favorite.
I love
I
you.
can't wait to come on almost 30. We got to fucking do it.
Fuck it up. Let's fuck it up. I love you so
So what's the
much.
title of this going to be? Because
Oh
what did
my
we
God.
even freaking rip?
Gosh,
What
I
did
feel
we-
like we were in like a little warp of love.
I know,
for
like
an
vortex
hour.
of,
That's the one, vortex.
Yeah.
A schmortex.
yes. It's
Like
because my
Abraham
womb
Hicks.
is activated.
I can feel that womb energy.
Dude,
I'm like,
it's-
whoa, let's go.
Yeah, you're like creation. Okay. We love you guys.
So where can people find you?
Oh, yeah.
Krista, tell us everything.
Okay. So Almost 30 is the podcast that I do with my best friend, Lindsay. I
If
was
you
talking
don't know
you
about
don't-
almost 30, where have you been?
where you been.
It's so great. It's so great.
It's
so
really
good.
amazing. So spirituality, health, and wellness. And then morning microdose is our daily dose of Almost 30. No ads, no intro. And then almost30.com. And then it's Krista is where I have my stuff on Instagram. I have a retreat in October that I'm excited about.
Where? What? Tell me more.
In Ibiza.
Stop.
Yeah, you should come.
Oh
I'm
my
going to
God,
stay there
I'd
for a month.
love to.
Wait, we should-
October?
yeah.
Wait.
We should rip.
What are the dates?
I'm there from October 2nd to November 6th.
So Eric and I are going to Japan October 18th, but we could go. Is that? We're going to figure this out.
Oh my God, I would love
I
that.
I kind of want to take a soul-batical all of October and just like fuck around.
I actually just realized I was going to do this like group thing. And I'm like, I just messaged my girl. I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Feels like too much.
Yeah.
We're going to leave some space for whatever God wants to
Right.
bring through.
Oh, I love this.
I was like,
That's such a good business strategy.
Yeah.
It's like let God have a seat on your table.
yes, that's it.
I love you.
Okay, love you guys.
Okay, everyone. We'll see you
Ta-ta.
later. Bye.
Oh my God, that was my favorite interview I've ever done.
Really?